Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BCSF Sangha Service. We'll start the service this morning with a group reading of the Three Treasures One, and it's found on page 8, and it will also be displayed on the screen. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it here, such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namandas. Namandas. Next is Sutra chanting of the Junirai on page 67, led by Reverend Henry Adams, and the Junirai will be displayed on your screen. Thank you.
上三利悪徳自在高雅町内皆そう十本名門菩薩衆無料諸魔女三段一生衆上管理基中高雅町内に出そう本体保険地証券前言上上名大座お膝上両線の高雅町内に出そう実法将来勝負し変幻人図し安楽戦後尊厳上行高雅町内に出そう小運無常無我と逆如水願伝如老一種説法無明人高雅町内に出そう一尊不説無悪名薬無如人悪道夫主任死心教義尊高雅町内に出そう非尊無量法免許無所主悪知識往生不大心菩提高雅町内に出そう我説非尊不徳寺修善無変了解水小逆善言小上 Butsunamanda, 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 Butsunamanda.
Our Dharma speaker this morning is Reverend Henry Adams, and it's always a pleasure for us to listen to him and hear all his Dharma stories and messages. Reverend Adams.
Invite you to join me in Gassho as we hear the words of Shinran Shonin as passed down in the Tanisho, a record in lament of divergences. The master would often say, when I consider deeply the vow of Amida, which arose from 5 kalpas of profound thought, I realize that it was entirely for the sake of myself alone. Then how I am filled with gratitude for the primal vow, in which Amida resolved to save me, though I am burdened with such heavy karma. Namam Dabats, Namam Dabats, Namam Dabats, Namam Dabats, Namam Dabats, Namam Dabats. Good morning, everyone. Minasan ohayou gozaimasu. It's very nice to see all of you are here with us this morning. If you'd like to switch on your camera, I welcome you to. I know that not everybody's ready to have their camera on Sunday morning at this hour, but if you'd like to, it's always nice to see folks' smiling faces. This is a wonderful treat for me to be in the kind of regular Sunday service. I usually, my schedule kind of varies. I generally am coming up on the third or the fourth Sunday of the month, and so it's great just to be here for a service as we reflect upon our lives at this time here in the month of February. I know many of us yesterday took part in various Day of Remembrance activities. I was honored to be able to hear one of our San Mateo Sangha members speak yesterday at the San Mateo Library, and listening to his reflections, I was recalling many of the Sangha members who lived through those difficult times and the example that they set for me of courage, peace of mind in the face of difficulty, and the way in which they continued to treasure the Dharma and treasure the temple, and to continue on this Nembutsu tradition so that we are able to take comfort and inspiration from the Buddha's teachings at this time. February is also the month in which we observe our Nirvana Day service, recalling Shakyamuni Buddha's entering into parinirvana, the state of profound and deep lasting tranquility, the end of his life in this world. Each year in February, as I remember Shakyamuni Buddha, I also recall one of my good Dharma friends who also crossed over to the other shore this month of February. A gentleman by the name of Joe, who is a member at the San Mateo Buddhist temple. And I recall when I came up to San Mateo when I first moved to the Bay Area from Oxnard, kind of wondering who are going to be my guides here. I had many Sangha members back in Oxnard who had really supported me and sort of showed me the Nembutsu path here in the United States, and ministers there who were my good friends. Reverend Abiko was a great mentor and supporter of mine during my early years as a minister, and so coming up into the Bay Area, I was a little nervous because I had sort of leaving my close Dharma teachers and friends back in Southern California, coming up here And when I got here, the members informed me, we have a custom every Sunday at 8:30 we chant Shoshinge in the Hondo. And I thought, well, that sounds like a nice practice. I'll be happy to join in that. We used to do something similar, down in Oxnard. And so when I first, came, and I remember the first Sunday I came to, we settled into the Hondo. There was maybe 4 or 5 people there, and we chanted Shoshinge. And I remember there was one gentleman who walked with a cane, and he had come in and he sat, towards the back of the Hondo. And I noticed he was there throughout the chanting, just sitting with, he had his eyes closed, and I could tell he was listening very deeply to the chanting. And then when the chanting ended, he came up, he offered incense, and then he went home before the regular service, which started at 9:30, began. And then I thought, oh, okay. And so the next Sunday he came, same thing, same time he was there, and got up and left right after the chanting. And so the following Sunday I was like, I've got to figure out, does he not know we have a service that starts at 9:30? And so, after, right as soon, I made a point to kind of scurry down from the Naijin and to greet him and say, hi, I'm Reverend Henry, I'm the new minister here. He says, oh yeah, Sensei, I know you. It's so wonderful to be here. And I'm sorry that I always leave, before the service. I know we have a 9:30 service, but for me, I want to come and just to hear the chanting. And then hearing the chanting, I feel great comfort. And then I don't want to cause any trouble for others because, I walk with a cane and I'm not too sure on my feet. So, I want to leave before it gets crowded here in the Hondo. But, it brings me such comfort to be here. And, from time to time, I would have the opportunity to converse with him in that sort of window of time between the 2 services. And he would always say this to me. He would always say, thank you, Sensei. It brings me such comfort to hear the sound of the chanting. And then he would make his way back to his home. And so, to me, this was a Sangha member who really appreciated what we have, this opportunity to hear the Dharma, to come together, to go to a place where the Buddha is present. And so for us, these days, we're not able to gather here in the way that we had in years past here in the Hondo, but we still come together on Zoom. This way we come to the Buddha. We come here before the Buddha and we receive a great gift from the Buddha. We receive this great generosity of the Buddha's teachings. So when we come to the temple, we receive the awareness of our path to awakening. And so this is a wonderful gift, an act of dana. You may have heard this word dana. It means generosity or the practice of giving. This is important practice, one of the first. It's the very first of the 6 paramitas. And dana has three types. There are 3 types of dana in the Buddhist tradition. I think when we often think of dana, we think of it as the dana of material generosity, to give money, to give. In the old days, people would donate rice to the temple and other things. I remember another thing. I remember when I came up to the Bay District Dharma School, one of my favorite Bay District organizations, and I've been honored to serve as an advisor, throughout my time here in the Bay District. And I remember the first time I went to a meeting, they were saying, okay, so, San Mateo, Palo Alto, Oakland, you still need to give your dana. Your dana is overdue. And so the dana was the monthly, the annual sort of dues for part of the organization, and so that's our usual way of thinking. Dana is a kind of giving of something materially, but dana can also be the dana of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma. So there's the material dana, but then there's also the dana of sharing the teachings of the Buddha. Anyone can, who has an appreciation of the teachings, can share the dana of the Dharma. Traditionally, in traditional Buddhist communities, Nagarjuna describes a kind of relationship where the householders, the people who were out kind of earning money, would provide dana to the Sangha of material support, and then the Sangha would provide the dana of the teachings, the Sangha being the community of Buddhist monks and nuns, right? So there's a sort of traditional relationship. In our Jodo Shinshu teaching, we all live together, we all receive this teaching. And so we can all share the dana. And then there's the dana of material things, the dana of the Dharma, the Buddhist teachings, and then the third type of dana is the dana of freedom from fear. To give someone freedom from fear is the great generosity of the Buddha. This is the gift that we receive from the Buddha. And in Shakyamuni Buddha's time, people would go to visit Shakyamuni Buddha. They would go in person, and they would bring, of course, dana of support for the Sangha, perhaps food, perhaps robes, perhaps eating utensils or mats for the monks to sleep on. And they would receive the dana from the Buddha or from the Sangha of the teachings, and from the Buddha himself they would receive this dana of freedom from fear. Freedom from fear. So there are many cases, many stories from the Buddha's life that share with us how the Buddha shared this freedom from fear, this wonderful dana of his teachings. And there's one case in particular that Shinran Shonin describes in his writings, in a teaching called the Kyogyo Shinsho. And this is a teaching that he shared with the son of one of his closest friends. One of his closest friends and supporters was a king named Bimbasara. And King Bimbasara was a great patron of the Buddhas. He was a powerful, wealthy king, and he did much to support the Buddha and the Sangha. And his son, Prince Ajatasattu, was a close friend of the Buddha's cousin Devadatta. I'm not sure if you've heard of Devadatta. He's kind of like the Wile E. Coyote of the Buddha stories. He's always causing trouble for the Buddha. He's always trying to take control of the Sangha. So on one occasion, Devadatta had gotten the ear of Prince Ajatasattu and said, if you were to take over the kingdom, you would be a great and powerful king. And then I could lead the Sangha, and together we could kind of get things going in the direction that we want them to go in. And so Ajatasattu then, hearing this, became kind of excited about this idea of becoming king, becoming powerful. And so he hatched a plot. He had his guards capture the king and throw him in jail. And denied him any food or beverage, anything to drink. And for a time, the queen, Vaidehi, was going regularly to visit the king. No one could stop her. And she would smuggle food and drinks in because she was the queen and no one could stop her. When Ajatasattu heard about this, then he threw his mother in jail. Right? Threw his mother in jail. And then the king denied this opportunity to receive nourishment. He naturally lost his life. He died. And so in time, Prince Ajatasattu then, having become the king and eventually having accomplished his aim, he's now the king, he has unchecked power, he releases his wife, or not his wife, but his mother rather, the king's wife, his mother, from prison. And as time goes on, he becomes more and more guilt-ridden about what he's done, because his mother is kind. His mother is also a wise follower of the Buddha, and so she continues to be present for him, to care for him as her son, even though he had taken the life of her husband. So the more time he spends, the more he realizes that he's done something really terrible. And he becomes not only emotionally distraught, but he becomes physically sick. Boils erupt all over his body. And his mother is kindly treating this rash, these boils that are appearing on his body, and he realizes, this is my karma. I've done such a horrible thing. Already, the results of that are appearing in my body. He becomes terrified of the results of his wicked actions, the harmful things that he has done. And so he, one by one, he calls various doctors to come and to consult with him, various wise teachers to try to treat his illness. And they all recognize that the problem is in his mind. It's the physical expression of the stress and the guilt that he feels in his heart. And so they try to set his mind at ease. And the first doctor who comes says, you know what? Good, bad, evil, these are all just ideas that people have made up. So you don't need to worry about it. You're the king. So he hears that teaching, doesn't bring him peace. So he calls another doctor. The next doctor who comes says, you know what? There are two kinds of laws in this world. There are laws for Buddhist priests, for monks, and those laws, you're not supposed to kill, you're supposed to be a really good, upstanding person. But there's another set of laws for kings. And kings, kings need to rule the country. They need to maintain order. And so you just did what you had to do. You don't need to worry about it. This didn't bring him peace either. So another doctor is summoned. And this doctor said, in order to be king, your father did many, many things. He went to fight in wars. He took many lives as a king and as a warrior. His death was just the result of his own karma, and we can't understand his karma. So it wasn't your responsibility. You were just fulfilling your father's karma. Didn't buy this either, right? This is kind of strange sophistry here. Another doctor is summoned, and he says, you know what? You're not the only one who's ever done this. Many princes have killed the king, the father, to become the king. This happens from time to time. Nobody gets punished for it, right? Don't worry about it. You're the king now. No one can touch you. This doesn't bring him peace either, because he still feels this deep remorse, this deep guilt. Finally, he calls another doctor. This doctor's name was Jivaka. Jivaka was also a wise follower of the Buddha's teachings. And Jivaka says something very interesting. He's like, oh, how do you feel? I think that this illness may be the result of your feelings in your heart. How do you feel? He says, I feel terrible. I feel such guilt for what I've done. I'm terrified of the results of my actions. And Jivaka says to him, good. It's good that you feel bad about this. You ought to feel bad. You've done something bad. And this feeling of remorse, this feeling of guilt, this is the first step for you to begin to set your life on the right path. There's one teacher, one person who can liberate you from this fear and this terror, one person who can bring you peace of mind, and that is the wise teacher, the Buddha. And Ajatasattu, hearing the name of the Buddha, he says, oh, he was my father's, one of his closest friends. There's no way he wants to see me. I could never go and speak to the Buddha. He must hate me. I killed unjustly the king, his great supporter. I could never go to the Buddha. And so in that moment, the Buddha is aware of this conversation. It said he sends a healing light to Prince Ajatasattu and heals the physical ailment, the sores on his body. And Ajatasattu is, what is happening? He says, see, Jivaka tells him, see, the Buddha has healed your body. Now you must go to the Buddha so that he may heal your mind. And Ajatasattu says, no, I could never go. The Buddha would never see me. He would never welcome me into his presence. And here Jivaka says something very interesting. He says, the Buddha is like a parent. He says, consider a parent who has 7 children, a parent with 7 kids. Now that parent loves all of those kids equally. Each of their 7 children receives equal love. But if one of those children becomes ill, does not that parent devote all of their energies, all of their attention to that child, to the sick child? It's not that they don't love the other children, but they know it's the sick child who needs their care. The Buddha is like this with the foolish and the wicked people of this world, people who are burdened with heavy karma. His attention goes solely to those who have committed evil, those who have harmed others and who continue to do things that are harmful to themselves and others. And so Ajatasattu, then hearing this teaching, he can begin to kind of understand. He thinks about his own kind mother who's caring for him even though he had killed her husband, the king. And so they go, and those days they would travel by elephants. They're traveling to see the Buddha. At one point, Ajatasattu becomes so terrified of what will happen because of his wicked actions that he asks Jivaka, let me ride on your elephant with you. Let me ride with you. He wants to be close to this person who's guiding him to hear the Buddha's teachings. And so finally they arrive at the Buddha, and Jivaka is still wondering, will the Buddha see me? And indeed, the Buddha welcomes him and listens, says, what's troubling you? And Ajatasattu describes, he confesses all that he's done before the Buddha, telling the Buddha, and the Buddha, hearing this, continues to welcome him. So Ajatasattu's shown all of the kind of wickedness in his heart, and the Buddha says, you've come here, don't be attached to that person that you were. You have the potential to change your life. You can let go of those past actions, that way of living, and you can set your life on the path of kindness and understanding. Don't be attached to that person who you were. Live a life directed toward the awakening that you can become. And so even though Ajatasattu, in his heart, he has no seed of goodness for himself, hearing the Buddha assures him that through this compassion, through meeting the Buddha, he is able to be guided onto the path of awakening. Right? So to meet a Buddha, to come into the presence of a Buddha, brings tremendous peace of mind. Just like my good Dharma friend Joe, just coming into the Hondo, sitting before the Buddha, hearing the words of the Buddha's wisdom chanted, he experienced that great peace of mind of awakening. This teaching, right? This teaching helps me to understand Shinran Shonin's own life. Shinran Shonin, who lived 2,500 years, and not we lived 2,500 years. Shinran Shonin, who lived over 1,500 years after the Buddha. Right? He lived a long time after the Buddha, and yet he experienced great peace of mind. And people would go to Shinran Shonin seeking that peace of mind, seeking to meet him as if they were meeting a Buddha. And Shinran Shonin said something really interesting. At one point, his companions in the Nembutsu, they traveled far across Japan, from the distance of what is now around Tokyo area, all the way to Kyoto, where Shinran was living. Now, these days, that's like a 2-hour ride on the bullet train. It's very easy, very safe. In those days, you had to cross through the borders of more than 10 provinces. It was not safe. People would get robbed. There would be bandits. They could be ill. All of these very serious risks were there for them. And still they traveled this distance to go to see Shinran, thinking that he would be able to bring them this peace of mind. And when they got there, Shinran gave a very interesting response. He said, and I'll read what he said, each of you has come to see me, crossing the borders of more than 10 provinces at the risk of your life, solely with the intent of asking about the path to birth in the land of bliss. But if you imagine in me some special knowledge of a path to birth other than the Nembutsu or of scriptural writings that teach it, you are greatly mistaken. Right? Shinran says, don't come to me looking for something. Right? He says, I have one simple thing, the Nembutsu. It says, if that is the case, since there are many eminent scholars in the southern capital of Nara or on Mount Hiei to the north, you would do better to meet with them and inquire fully about the essentials for birth. So if you're seeking some kind of profound, special teaching, special practice, it says, there's other people. Maybe you could go see them. But if you come to see me, Shinran Shonin says, as for me, I simply accept and entrust myself to what my reverend teacher told me. Just say the Nembutsu and be saved by Amida. Nothing else is involved. So Shinran Shonin, living over a millennia, separated from the Buddha. He knows the Buddha is not there in this world. So where can we go, we who recognize our own foolishness, to receive that peace of mind? Shinran Shonin says, don't come to me, go to the Buddha. Simply say, Namo Amida Butsu. Hear the voice of the Buddha calling to you in this moment and be guided on your path to awakening. This is the great gift, the great generosity of the Buddha. So when we come here to the temple, when we come and gather in this space that has been cared for and maintained with so much sacrifice and dedication over the years, we're coming here not to hear how we can be liberated, how to be liberated, but rather to hear the truth that we already are liberated, that Amida Buddha has assured our path to awakening. And so when we say Namo Amida Butsu, it's the Nembutsu of gratitude, of appreciation. The sense that we recognize ourselves, like Shinran Shonin, we think about the way that we've lived moment to moment, how we live right now, this day. And perhaps I find in my life that I, like Ajata Satram, heavily burdened by the weight of my karma. And yet, the Buddha assures me that the compassion of the vow will carry me over to the other shore. And so, the freedom from fear that we receive in the Nembutsu is the freedom of knowing that we're settled on our path to awakening, that all that needs to be done has been accomplished by the Buddha. And so our way of living becomes the life of gratitude, a life of appreciation for all the things that support our life, all that those who have done before have done to make this moment possible, where we encounter the compassion of the Buddha. We say these words, Namo Amida Butsu. So in conclusion, I will invite you to join me in Gassho and let us take comfort in these words of the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namman Dabutsu. Namman Dabutsu. Namman Dabutsu.
Thank you very much, Reverend Adams. Our Gatha this morning is Metta, and it is on page 178, and it will also be displayed on your screen.
All creatures we
Thank you, Kevin. Now we'll have a closing meditative reading by Elaine Weston.
In the Subjects for Contemplation Sutra, the Buddha taught the following: I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love is of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you, Elaine. Before we close, we'd like to extend our appreciation to Reverend Henry Adams for leading us in the Junirai and for his Dharma message this morning. And also our appreciation to Elaine Weston for her closing reading, and to Kevin Yoza for connecting us through Zoom and all of his tech support. And we certainly wouldn't be here without him. He works morning, noon, and night. Anyway, thank you. We have announcements, and there are several of them. And the first one is that BCSF will be reopening for in-services in March. And everyone needs to be fully vaccinated and boosted. And also, you need to be fully masked. Another thing we need to do is complete a health screening form at the entrance of the building before entering. And let's see, the second announcement is next Sunday, Reverend Keskeli Miyake will be the Shoshinge speaker, and he will be conducting the service as well. And today at 1 o'clock, there is a monthly board meeting, and everyone is welcome to attend if you like. But if you do want to attend, you will need to receive the Zoom link, and you could do that by asking a board member. I believe Girl Scout cookies are still being sold. And so between now and March 27th, you are able to put in your order. And you could do that by calling the church office or emailing, and they'll take your order and give them to the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts also have an email, but I don't have that with me right now. Let's see, are there any other announcements? According to the light of Dharma, and I'm assuming the schedule is still the same, there is a mindful meditation class conducted by Leo Joslin Sensei. That's this Wednesday at 6:30. And also on February 26th, on Saturday, Reverend Elaine Donlin will be conducting a Metta service. And that starts at 5 o'clock. And they're all on Zoom. Okay. And probably you could call the church office to get the link. Okay. So no other announcements? All right. This concludes our Sangha service for today. I want to thank everyone for joining in and give a big shout out to everyone. Hello Happy Lunar New Year. And please continue to be safe, healthy, joyful. Don't forget joyful, and be well connected. See you next time. Thank you. Namandas.
And a big thank you to Mrs. Abiko for being our chairperson.
Oh.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Namandas.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.